It is March 21st, 2015, and I have been crying a little bit here and there, just because obviously thinking about these kinds of things is not fun. And I'm not breaking down or anything. It's not like I go about every day thinking about these things, going in and out of tearing up because I don't hold for themselves. It's, you know, it's nothing that anyone's going to fix in this country. So, so some of the time when we had to do this programming work, and I was being programmed and tortured and forced to run away from people that I was supposed to get into a car with, or who were looked like safer people. And I was supposed to go with some guy who said he wanted me to go with him to his house, or meet him somewhere, that kind of thing. A couple of times, many times they had me practice from getting out of a car and running after some guy. They forced me to practice. They forced me to be programmed. I shouldn't say practice, because like I said, this was not like acting. This was being programmed, and then they made me repeat the motions over and over. And while I was under constant technology of ultrasound, and then threats of torture, forced blowjobs, and being killed. And even though they initially had said, "Come on, just do this with us, and it's to help you to not get hurt later," or whatever. Even though they made some kind of an excuse like that at the start, when they were really torturing me, it didn't seem like they were really trying to help me at all. They were really cutting me, really torturing me, really burning me on the hand, that kind of thing. And I didn't want to do it anymore. And I was in a lot of pain. They were doing this ultrasound on me at such high levels that at some point they were saying, "Run, can't you run?" And they were making fun of me. They started making fun of me, saying, "You want to run, don't you?" And then they started punishing me because they said, "You didn't run fast enough out of that car and away from that person." And I was kind of staggering because my back was hurting so bad from 5 hours of getting ultrasounded at extremely high levels all day. And they use that kind of technology to manipulate your brain waves, along with it does not just hurt your back. It's used for other reasons. And and that's aside from just the fact that you're feeling tortured, and so later you pretty much don't want to think about how you had to do that all the time, and so you just repress the memory. And that's what they want. They want you to start doing things like that for them on an automatic basis without thinking about it, and without remembering how they programmed you for 5 hours a day, every single day for 2 months. And this government has worked on all these techniques for so long. As I said, it's not like they were using me for some national interest project, like, "Oh, we're going to test this out because we don't know how it works," or whatever, and we want to try this on an enemy. There's no point to it. What kind of a country is going to get a hold of an enemy person and do that to the enemy and then get them to work for them? Nobody's going to go into another country, invade or whatever, and do that kind of thing. There's no practical purpose to it. And they didn't need me to start with. They didn't need me to figure out how much torture and how much repetition and programming it took to see if I could accidentally or subconsciously fall into the same forced response 2 decades later. They didn't need me to do that. They'd already been using the same technology and practiced the same things and already found it to be effective. And that's why they practiced as many times as they did, and they knew how much to do, why they were using this torture of me. So anyway, what it really came down to is that they wanted to use that, they wanted to use what they were doing to me as a form of making it look like of getting me to situations where I would be raped, but it wouldn't look like rape. Then I would report rape. And then I would look like I was a liar, and they could use it against me. And they could also make me look like a floozy and be degraded. And I think the entire purpose of that had nothing to do with national security. They decided to use their national security quote-unquote projects on me because they were stealing from me. They were stealing so much money from me that these people needed a cover for themselves. You know, a cover for why they'd stolen from me, why they had used my body as, when I was a very young kid, using me as a mule, basically, to put government documents, send me out from one place to the next to deliver documents for them, you know, that they were shoving up my rear end, or you know, like in miniature little, you know, spy capsule things that they had, back and forth, that kind of thing. You know, this country was looking for ways to humiliate me and degrade me, discredit my testimony, and just keep stealing from me. So anyway, you know, because if I lie about all these different various quote-unquote rapes, then normal people would think, or even other people who weren't in on it in intelligence areas, they might think, you know, this woman is just lying about people. Why should we believe her about anything she says? You know, she's not credible. So they have obviously wanted me to look like a liar, like I falsely accuse people, like I'm a tramp, so that probably I never married well, quote unquote, and possibly to make enough people mad at me that I couldn't even get a job and be an independently successful person without getting married, and to make people really look down on me, you know, saying, you know, she's just a liar, doesn't take personal responsibility for her own actions, and that kind of thing. And you know, people obviously in society, they don't care for others who are like that. They think that's how they are. And so that was another way to isolate and alienate me from my peers, or from, you know, the workplace, or people out in the world. And so it was all the time that I had to do that, and it was a specific summer that it was practiced, but then a couple of other times they would reinforce it or test it a little bit to see if it still worked. And the women that they used were some of the women that initially the cops had said, we're going to have you working with them like on a prostitution beat, we're going to have you pretend to solicit attentions and sex from men, so that we can catch them, because there are lots of kids out there that are in danger. So here I am thinking stupidly. I'm thinking, oh well, this is for kids. You know, I can totally support that. You know, what kid doesn't want to be hurt? And here they were hurting me all the time, planning my harm, and getting me to be in their proximity under the impression and false reason of working with them to prevent child prostitution, when that's not what they were doing. They were actually, my entire life, they'd been selling me. They had not been protecting me. They had been making money off of me. And now they wanted me to think that I was working with their prostitution people, developed at least a tenuous bond with a couple of the women out there, and then they wanted to use those women to practice their programming of how to get me to go off, leave a woman that I had some kind of a bond with as a quote-unquote friend or associate, and reject her to go running after a guy who said that he wanted me to go with him to his house, so that then they could use their other set of programming techniques where they'd tortured me and forced me to do blowjobs and to not resist being raped. They could get me to be raped, and then you know, great for them. They all feel really good about themselves, I'm sure. And then oh, and was there ever a big pot of gold at the end of the rainbow? Wouldn't exactly call it a rainbow, more like a piss arch. And No, there was never a big pot of gold, and no one ever gave me money. I was not even running after them and going with them anywhere under the impression that I might get money from them. I was told that sometimes, but then they dropped that part of the programming, and then they made it into just I had to go with this person, reject this woman, and go with this other man regardless. And there had no promise of quote unquote money, and had nothing to do with that, and even was starting to getting changed to the point where it had nothing to do with documents, receiving documents from anyone either. I was just being told I had to go with this man and reject a woman. And some of the people that showed up, this is going to be very surprising. I have to see what the time is here because there's a glare on the. Okay, I have a couple of minutes here. The really shocking, surprising thing about this is, in addition to all of these cops who were not in their cop uniforms or whatever, and some military and FBI and other people who are doing this to me and making me practice this, and these women whose cars, I was buddying up with, I thought, and then I was having to run away from their car and going with them to running back to this building to go with a guy who said he wanted me to go with him to his house. Well, not at that specific time with all the practice with the women that I had to do, but during the time when I was running from one car to the next car, or walking downtown and having to run over to a guy and get into his car, and actually possibly also when I had to run back from a woman and into the building, but I don't remember them being present as much for that specific thing, but possibly there were a couple of priests, Roman Catholic priests from Mount Angel Abbey that I already knew. And I remember, they were in like plains clothes, like had their collar. You could kind of see their collar. They were still like wore their priest thing, but I mean, like you couldn't tell. We were just wearing normal clothes, except for all you could see was just like a little black thing from where their collar would be. And there were two of them at a time, and I kept thinking, how come they have priests out here watching this? And then when actually Mike Tanzer raped me later, it was kind of strange that his apartment was right next door to the Catholic Church. And I guess, I'm not sure why they had the priest there, but the priest didn't look very happy with me. They didn't look like they liked me. And one of them looked like Father Joachim McCann, Bill McCann. And the other priest, I'm not sure who it was. It was a shorter guy. And it was possibly Father or Brother Brown. It was maybe one of the same, I think it was one of the guys. I don't think it was Ordo, Abbot Ordo. I don't think it was him. I think it was the other guy that was with him when I was then told by a guy to meet him out at this one place and then I got lured out there and I was gang raped in Coquille. I think that he was one of the individuals who watched some of the programming that was being done with me before that happened. And I'm not 100% positive, but the two priests that I saw sort of looked like Father Joachim McCann and this Brother Brown guy. And it's possible that Abbot Ordo came out and saw something at one time. But I don't really remember thinking, oh, that's the abbot. And I had met the abbot before. He could have been out there, though. But I had met the abbot at Mount Angel Abbey before. So why would Mount Angel Abbey be involved? Well, some of them were military people. I do know that they were doing a little bit of trafficking of drugs, too, possibly CIA type of work. And I was sexually assaulted by them. I mean, I'm not the only person who's ever sexually assaulted by some of the clergy. And talk about this next.